Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever is Jason Booker. We're here to talk all things Leeds United. We didn't have a post-match reaction to the Borough game because, Jason, you were away for a couple of days in what I would call probably a perfect antidote to the Leeds United stress. You were at Euro Disney, a nice little getaway, I would say, to take your mind off Leeds United, but obviously you were trying to follow the result on Tuesday, weren't you?
Yeah, or indeed, mate. The stress of watching Leeds United could only be topped by the stress of listening to Leeds United. Apparently, I can quite confidently say that I've not listened to a game rather than watch one, maybe ever. Certainly in years, maybe since it were on Radio Leeds back in the day. I haven't listened to a game in years and years, and it's bloody horrible because you can't really understand exactly where the action is, what's happening. And yeah, it was really, really stressful. My whole family were back in a hotel room at about 10:30 at night by the time the game had finished there in France. This is in their time. And when the final whistle went, it was safe to say they were all a little relieved because it meant that I weren't pissed off for the rest of the night and the following day. So yeah, fun, mate, fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It must be nice to get out of the boiler room with Leeds United at the minute because it's been stressful to say the least. And you know what? I woke up Wednesday morning, Jason. It's the first time I've woken up in a long time where it was like, everything's kind of feels okay again in the Leeds United world. It's look, we're massive Leeds fans, passionate, and it does impact your mood. God, when you wake up in the morning and have just had a bad result and they're slipping down the league, you just think, oh no, what is going on? And it does impact you. You do get stressed about it. It's amazing how it happens, especially at the business end of the season. So it was fantastic to wake up Wednesday morning and be able to watch the highlights and just go, we did the business. Long way to go, of course, and we've got lots to discuss. If you're watching along live, please do get your comments in, like the video, share the video as well. And if you're watching later, let us know what you think of what we've been talking about as well, and get subscribed to the channel too. So welcome along, everybody. Gavin, great to be back on top, and Nige, evening guys, great Tuesday night back in our own hands now. So we're going to start with the Middlesbrough game, and do you know what, Jason? Normally, obviously it's only guesswork, but your predictions and whatnot when a game's coming up. But I normally kind of think, I think we'll win this, or I think we'll struggle there, or that kind of thing. With the Borough game, I literally was just scratching my head all day. I was like, I'm nervous about it, and I have absolutely no idea what this game is going to look like. If it's going to be the change of fortunes, how we're going to play, is it? I literally had no clue. And what an amazing game, really, because it twists and turns, the offsides, so dramatic. But what a feeling to get through what is, on paper, our toughest fixture for the remainder of the season. And just how vital, Jason, to get a win after what's been a really, really difficult run for Leeds.
Yeah, I personally think it is potentially season defining. I think if we look, if we hopefully do go ahead and get the points that we need to take us up, I think we'll look back and say that 1-0 win away at Borough was pivotal, that we got that when we needed it, because the pressure would have only ramped up further. Would have been even, it'd have been another game without a win. And especially considering the fact that the other two didn't win and Sheffield United lost again, it was our time to really assert our position in this situation. Middlesbrough are on good form. They're a good side. They play good football. They've got the potential to really hurt us, which they did at Ellen Road in the Cup earlier on in the season. They've been up and down this season. It's got to be said. They've lost a lot of games and won a lot of games. They're in a really funky kind of mould under Carrick, but they've definitely got a lot about them. And we had it's funny because we were saying in the review of the Luton game that we faced Borough at this time last season, and it was potentially a season defining game then, and unfortunately we didn't back it up with other results thereafter. But again, it doesn't feel the same as that game was a basketball match, 4-3, like we kind of nicked it really, didn't we, if you remember? Whereas this time, it's 1-0 on paper, but we fully deserved the win. We were back to, maybe not back to us best, but back to as close to our best that we've seen in weeks. And that form kind of spins on its head now, because as much as we have only won 2 games out of the last 7 or whatever, we've only lost 1 in 25, I think it is. Like, people are quick to forget that because there's one too many draws in there. I've seen other content creators saying this, and they're absolutely right. I said the same thing in the review, in that the Luton result actually wasn't that bad. The real issue was the Swansea result. The last minute equaliser in that game has really hurt us, because we would be 4 points ahead of Burnley, 4 points ahead of Sheffield United, sorry, would be 2 points ahead of Burnley. Would be very, very comfortable at this stage with the games that we've got to come and the fact that they've got to play each other. But, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about it ahead of tonight's show, you have to look at the silver linings that are involved in this, because I don't think if that Swansea game finishes 2-1 to Leeds, Meslier gets dropped. I really don't think that. And I think as a consequence, Darlow's come in. He had a great game against Luton. I thought he made some really important saves against Middlesbrough. He had a flap in the last minute, but all keepers can have a flap. That's fine. But for the largest parts of the game, he is assured that back line. So, the silver linings of that last-minute equaliser against Swansea has seen probably some produce come out of that. And then the injury to Pascal, which I know we'll get into, I think has put us in a far better position to go on and do what we need to do. The chemistry between them three, but predominantly and particularly Rodon and Ampadu, is so much stronger. We have such a more solidified, confident leadership in that back line without Pascal in there and with Ampadu leading the back line. So these things, sometimes it can seem like a problem in the moment, but sometimes it can actually be blessings in disguise.
Yeah, do you know what? I think you're absolutely spot on, and I'd not even thought of that, to be honest. But it's absolutely true. I think if he has that blunder against Swansea, but it's still 2-1, he probably keeps his position.
I think he does.
And yeah, I mean, it's scary to think, because one of the things I was thinking during this Borough game, and even the Luton game, was it's nice. I can't describe it another way, but it's nice to have like a normal keeper in net, for someone who does the basics. There was a couple of shots that Borough had that I seriously think could have gone straight through Meslier. I really do, because we've seen it. We're talking near post shots, but Darlow's there, big chest, stands firm, doesn't get through him. And I just thought we look a different outfit defensively when he's there as opposed to Meslier. I think he's spot on about Ampadu as well, coming in, back in with Rodon as well. I thought Ampadu was absolutely brilliant. I really did. His build-up play from the back against Middlesbrough, it was a really key moment, actually, because obviously we took the lead quite early. And Borough started to get on top. This must have been after 20, 25 minutes. Apologies if I'm not getting the time quite right, but it just felt like Borough were getting more and more, putting more and more pressure on Leeds. And it was kind of, is that dam going to bust? Are they going to get a goal? And all of a sudden, Ampadu just seemed to take it by the scruff of the neck. And he's so cool and calm and composed that his build-up play was skating around players. He was doing some of the long-range passing was just exquisite. And he started to get Leeds playing again. And it just saw us through quite a difficult patch. And I just think, for me, he's on a different level completely to Struijk. And I think that partnership he has with Rodon is absolutely rock solid. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, I've seen some Twitter accounts where they're kind of, all for Struijk, saying, well, Borough could have scored. And, it's literally any excuse to kind of make out that Pascal should be number one in the centre-back range, but not for me at all. I thought Ampadu was absolutely fantastic. And isn't it funny how it works as well? If these two things happen, the Struijk injury and Meslier mistake means he comes out, it's the thing that drives us over the line. I mean, I feel more confident with Ampadu and Rodon at the back. I feel more confident with Darlow in net. Let's see. Like you say, that could be the thing that actually gets us over the line. And hopefully now with a win under his belt, that confidence just grows and grows. Jayson, in terms of the game as well, obviously huge talking points. The offside goals. I can't tell you how angry I was. Like the last 20 minutes after Bamford's disallowed goal, you go one offside goal, that shouldn't have been given, and you go, bad luck again. This linesman has made three bad decisions against us in previous games, and you're fuming, obviously. But another one in the same game at such a vital time, and the last 15 minutes was so pressurised. I was absolutely just banging my head against the wall. If we hadn't won that game, Jason, if we hadn't hung on, honestly, I was like, I think I might just be done with football. I think I might just, that's it. I just can't take it anymore. But I mean, what were those decisions? I mean, it's just boggling. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Really, how we have this standard of linesmen at this level when there's so much riding on it.
Yeah, I want to come back to Ampadu, Stroyken Road on at some point, maybe a little bit later, but I'll stick on topic for now. I mean, mate, it is scandal. I mean, some of the decisions that this linesman has now made, it is bordering on worrying. I would say it's bordering on like check the linesman for some sort of betting regulations. Like I think it's that severe because they've not been like difficult decisions to make. That they've been very, very easy for a linesman that should be well within position to make them decisions. I think I don't know if the Bamford one was the same linesman. I'm guessing it wasn't because
it wasn't actually, was it? No.
Yeah, the first one was the same linesman that's made the two bad ones before that. The Bamford one, I think, is understandable given the pace and the crossover of the pass to the collection of the ball from Bamford. It's still a really bad decision. Really, really bad decision because you can clearly see that he's yards, onside. But the Tanaka one is so bad. It is so bad.
Side, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's at that side. He can see across the line. And not only that, but Solomon's played the ball in at such an angle in which that he can watch the passage of the ball and the movement of Tanaka. And you can clearly see that Tanaka has moved to the other side of the defender that stood still. It is so bad, that first one, that it is, like I say, bordering on some sort of corruption. It can't be explained away in any other way because it's either that or complete incompetency to the point where they shouldn't be officiating these games anyway. And I can't believe that he's making these types of errors every single week because if he was, he'd be removed from duty. I don't know if Gavin's just saying that Lino dropped for the weekend. If that's true, then that's
true. He's gone down to League One apparently.
Well, I mean, it's correct. It's such a bad decision. And yeah, I mean, it can make the difference in being a Premier League team and being a Championship team. The lads, especially Downsley, gave me some right stick about the fact that I said that the Sunderland handball last year could have been the difference between us going up and staying down. We drew 0-0 that day, and there was an absolute stonewall penalty that everybody in the ground could see. The only person that missed it was the only one that mattered in the referee, and it was so obvious. And the same goes for this one. Like, I'm not asking for hand-me-outs. I'm not asking for, something that we don't deserve. I'm just asking to officiate the games correctly. And they can't see the basics. I mean, this one's not on the referee. Neither of them are on the referee. They have to have a linesman to do the job for them, But yeah, it's wild. And this situation with VAR further up the pyramid has made officiating weak. It's made them scared to it's just made them incompetent because they now can rely on somebody to bail them out. That's how it feels all the time. And these decisions are just not made correctly. Like I said, they're not difficult ones to make. And we look, we've won this game and we're complaining about officiating. This is happening week after week after week. We had the situation against where it was a Swansea game where it's a stonewall second yellow. He bottles it, does the referee, and he gets subbed 30 seconds later. Like, that's not okay. We could have gone on to win the Swansea game with that decision. Just make the correct decisions. And we've seen this time and time again. We've seen bad officiating, bad decisions. I mean, before the weekend, we were in double figures for apologies. Like, how is that right?
It feels like, when I'm watching this as well, it feels like they're very quick to make decisions against Leeds. It's always like, or penalty to the other team. They're very happy seemingly making decisions against Leeds, but anything, it's like the goals from the other night, there's literally no sense of, giving the favour to the attacker or anything. If it's in doubt, favour the attack. There's just none of that. It's just no. It's and it does start to get to the level where you think, God, this feels like a bit corrupt actually, because what is going on?
We've said it for years, haven't we? I mean, as a fan base, we have said this for years and years, from being in League One to the way that the EFL treat us, the whole top of the EFL tree. I forget the guy's name now that used to be at Leeds, and like all that. And a lot of people will say that we are the cash cow for the division, and again, the boys would scoff at us. They would absolutely, spew at what we're saying here. But when you've lived in and amongst this for as long as we have, and you see the decisions and you watch the officiating and what other teams get and what we get in the same comparison. I mean, Neil Warnock, we're big enough to say, and I actually like his punditry a lot of the time. I think he's pretty spot on with a lot of his takes. In the top divisions, the top teams usually get preference because of either the pressure or the weight. In the Championship, it's the complete opposite for Leeds United. We're by far the biggest team in the division, and we get treated like absolute scum. We get treated like shit. We get no preferential treatment. We have to fight and scream for everything that we get, and it does feel, like I said to you the other day, it wouldn't be a surprise if one day we hear about a big scandal where Leeds were on the wrong end of a corruption case, because that is what it feels like when we're in it. It doesn't feel just like normal poor refereeing, like we used to see in the Premier League. Like when we're in the Premier League, it never feels like that. It feels like we get a fair mix of what we deserve. In the Championship and in League One, it's never felt like that.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely spot on. And as Nige says here, the EFL and Sky don't want us to go up, in my opinion. Leeds are their cash cow. You know what? Me and my dad say it all the time about Leeds and being a cash cow, and other fans think we're joking or whatever. But honestly, it does feel like there's something going on. It is absolutely bonkers. I mean, I love my Leeds United history, and you can go back to the days of the 60s and 70s where Leeds were screwed over time and time again, and the dirty Leeds thing. And it's like an unconscious bias against Leeds. If you take a survey of who's the most hated club, majority are going to say Leeds. We're right up there as one of the most hated clubs, despite playing in the Premier League 3 seasons out of the last 20. It's phenomenal. Leeds United, there's just something innate where other teams, etc., do not like Leeds. And I don't know if there's an unconscious bias there that feeds into these things or what, but it is absolutely infuriating. I mean, I heard on TalkSport today there was Simon Jordan and Danny Murphy, it might have been yesterday actually, but I thought they got the wrong end of the stick completely, because Farke came out and I loved what he had to say. I loved that he was so focused in on this situation. And Simon Jordan and Danny Murphy were trying to say, it's just a manager whinging because something hasn't gone their way. And I'm like, no. This is a catalogue of errors that have gone against Leeds. Go back to last season, like you mentioned, the Sunderland, plenty last season as well. And there's plenty more this season. And it's not just about a manager whinging about decisions. It's about something wrong in the officiating that has potentially massive consequences. And Daniel Farke was absolutely right with his comments. I loved what he had to say, Jason.
Yeah, me too.
I thought that's what we needed to hear, and that's what needed to be said. If he doesn't turn a spotlight on it, who's going to?
100%. I mean, he's a leader of this football club, isn't he? From the in line of the football world, and he has to. I mean, he has to for the sanity of the players, because otherwise, what would they think? They're not stupid. They can see and feel this happening as well. Tanaka knew in that goal. He knew he was onside. Mistakes do happen, but we're not talking about just one every 4 or 5 games. We're talking about consistent game after game after game after game, where the level of officiating is so low and so poor, but it also is inconsistent within the same game between the two teams. I don't know whether, what you're just mentioning there about the reputation of Leeds United and the way that we are kind of seen within the footballing world. I don't know if some of these referees are just incapable of stripping away the bias and just refereeing the football game that they see in front of them. And, they're only human at the end of the day. They're probably just fans like me and you. And when Leeds are in town, they just give a little bit further, the other way, so they can have a laugh with the mates about it. Yeah. At the end of the day, it sounds childish, but
David Cool, look what he was getting up to. Look what he was getting up to.
Exactly. A lot of truth is said in jest, isn't it? And the way that he was behaving in front of that camera, in front of a mate, are you telling me that none of that could filter into his performances refereeing football games? Of course they can. So you know what I mean? Like these people, like it wouldn't surprise me at all if the referee, the linesman that has now been demoted, hasn't got a little bit of axe to grind. Oh, I can give that one offside. You know what I mean? Like, am I unshot? Yeah, offside. Like, you know what I mean? And it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like I say, I know it's a big claim to make, but look at the decisions.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about the ones where it's a cock air, mate. Like, like it's a millimeter offside, like, or onside. I'm not talking about them. We're talking about blatant, mate. Blatant, beyond blatant.
Tom, I just want to deal with this. So I understand many of the officials are so poor in the AFL, but just like the players, they make mistakes when under pressure. What's the alternative? VAR. I mean, this is the problem. I mean, you're not going to really be able to put VAR kind of below the Premier League because it costs a fortune for clubs to maintain, and it's just not really feasible. But I mean, what's the solution? Is it just obviously trying to improve the referees and the assistants that are coming through? Is there enough training, or what? Is it? I mean, what do you do with that?
We could have a show all on its own about this, and me and you and the boys have spoken about this in the WhatsApp group, haven't we? In many different fashions and guises. They need to strip the whole system back and work it from the ground up. They need to pay them properly. Like, I'm not saying at the moment that they're deserving to be paid more, but the problem is you are not bringing the caliber of people in that it needs, given the spectacle that's on show and the importance around the games, the money that's involved. You are not bringing the standard of quality of people in that you need at 30, 40 grand a year. You're just not. It's insane that we paying some of the Premier League officials that are on 25 grand a year, mate. Like, I know, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking that kind of money or that kind of wage. Like, plenty of good, hard-working people are on that kind of money. But when you're talking about dealing with the stress that they're under and the difficulties that they have, I'm not surprised that then you are bringing in people that are incapable to do the job. And it gets even worse as it goes down the ladder. Yeah. You need to find a way of getting ex-players involved in officiating and refereeing, so they are passing on what it's actually like to play football, because a lot of these people don't play football. They're not actual footballers, and they've never played the football to any sort of standard or quality before. They're just fans, really. That's the truth. So, they need to bridge a way into that. They need to get referees in and around the training grounds more. They need to get them... they need to be best in class. It's not even close. We subsidise our top-level football with this wishy-washy co-op. Like, it's like your local brand kind of, supermarket as opposed to your Marks and Spencer's product. It's crazy that we're having these people. You think about the standard of officials back in the 90s and the 2000s. We'll look at Kalina, we'll look at all the Premier League referees that we had, and they were all to a real solid, sufficient standard. They are miles off it now, mate. Miles and miles off it. There's a reason that there ain't a single footballer that goes into refereeing. There's a reason, because there's so much more money in punditry, there's so much more money in coaching, there's so much more reward in all of them areas as well, and refereeing and officiating just goes by the wayside. We just bank on me and you to turn his hands to officiating and go and fancy doing it. It's crazy.
Yeah, like you say, we could do a whole show on it, couldn't we, really? Let's have a look then. Some other comments coming in as well. Let's have a look. Skip what you're saying. Why do we never hear from shocking, constant crap officiating from other European leagues who get less funding than the Championship? I mean, it's a real difficult one. Getting back then to other matters, then obviously, Leeds we win on Tuesday, and Sheffield United. I mean, who would have predicted this? I mean, do you know what I think? I think part of this meltdown or this difficult period, there's a lot of factors that have come into it that have really made for the meltdown, and that is the fact that last year happened, that it's Leedsy to kind of bottle it a bit. The fact that Sheffield United came back after the international break and wiped the floor with Coventry, I think that was like, oh no, look how they're hitting a rich vein of form at the wrong time. But Sheffield United, these last two games, Jason, I mean, they've lost back-to-back games 1-0. Wilder's having a pop at the crowd. Wilder's having a pop at the referee as well the other night. It all just seems a little bit wrong. I mean, I was watching Blades Ramble YouTube fan channel, the guy who goes on One Leeds with Connor, and so it's amazing to hear like another fan base's take after a bad result, because the similarities and the things that you hear, like wow, things that you think, oh, it only happens to Leeds. We're the only ones that melt down and have these discussions and these worries and fears, and it's absolutely just not the case. I mean, really, we wouldn't have seen those results coming. But I mean, what's happening over there? I mean, they've kind of hit that top spot, and then themselves, they just seem to be feeling it a bit. But I mean, I've got to say, I mean, anytime I've seen them not played particularly well,
apart from Coventry,
I mean, are you expecting them to get back on track now, or do you think this might continue? They might have a few more dodgy results.
Well, it's hard to say, because pressure does funny stuff to people and to players. And the funny thing about Sheffield United is that I think they've won 13 games this season 1-0. That's pretty crazy. And in a lot of them, me and you have both said, how have they won that again? They were terrible. Now, at some point, them results had to spin around and become more defeats. They've actually lost 8 games this season. They've lost more than Leeds and Burnley put together. We've only lost 6 between us. They've lost 8. You know what I mean? So they are well capable of losing games, and they're struggling now all of a sudden to score goals. Sheffield Derby, they were lucky to win that one. They probably should have lost that 1-0 as well. So I'm not that surprised by this. I'm surprised by the timing of it, because after the Coventry game, I were a little bit like you, like they're going to go to Oxford, especially after seeing that we dropped points and probably win that game, and they didn't. Oxford were brilliant from all accounts, and then they go and lose 1-0 to Millwall at home, who have got nothing to play for. That like Millwall are literally run of the middle ground, can't get promotion, can't get relegation, like they're nothing to play for. So it just shows you, didn't it? And I said this to you after the review against Luton. It can turn just like that. It can spin on a dime, and thankfully for us, it actually has. In our favour for a change. Fingers crossed we can keep that going. Again, the big difference between us in terms of the two forms is that while we've been not playing as best and dropping points, we've still been picking up points. We've only lost 1, whereas Sheffield United have done something that we've not done all season and lost back-to-back games at a pivotal time. So yeah, it's absolutely massive, and I think the difference between Farke and Wilder in the way that they've dealt with the pressures and the stresses is telling as well. Wilder having a pop at the crowd is mental, whereas Farke has pretty much just gone about his business and kept his head down, and reverted back to I think his own beliefs in what he had to run on Tuesday and got it spot on. So. Yeah, I'd rather be in our position than them. But one thing I will say, if they had their 2 points added on, it'd be mental with 5 games to go that all 3 of us would be on 85 points. That's
crazy.
Nuts. Yeah,
that is absolutely crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. Yeah, when I was watching Wilder talk about Sheffield Wednesday, I mean, it was a few weeks ago, obviously, but he kind of went on this like 10-minute kind of rant about how much better they were than Sheffield Wednesday, and it was like kind of crazy. He strikes me as someone who kind of can easily, I don't know, kind of get a bit full of himself and a bit kind of, cocky and a bit kind of, high and mighty. And I just wonder if it's kind of coming back to biting in the arse a little bit, because obviously 2 bad results, and when you're starting to have a go at the crowd and things of this nature, it can seem to kind of have a negative effect. But we'll wait and see. Like you say, it can turn around. Difficult trip though at the weekend. I mean, it's Plymouth away at 12:30. I mean, it's
They have to win that. They have to win it, because Plymouth are terrible. And I mean, I know Plymouth are going to go out, and what I think Gavin's comment is, it's not going to be easy, because Plymouth do have to go and win that. But in many ways, that'll probably suit Sheffield United. I would be stunned if Sheffield United don't win again at the weekend. I would. I think that'll be 3 points for them. They know what's at stake. It's on Leeds United to do Leeds United's job now for us. Instead of looking at theirs 2 results. We've got a little bit of a blessing in what's happened over the last 2 games. But you know what? We're at that stage of the season where any sort of result can pop up. We've seen it not just in the promotion pack, in terms of us 3 going for autos. We've seen other weird results. Plymouth beat Norwich last weekend. Nobody had predicted that one. Oxford obviously beat Sheffield United. There's been other results down there as well. Derby got a good result last week, then drew 0-0 with Burnley at home. So these things happen, and that's why now we can say this afterwards. the Luton point wasn't the worst point in the world. We didn't play well. We were 1-0 down. We came back to get something out of that game. It was the Swansea dropping 2 points that was the big dropping points. But Celavi, like I say, we've had silver linings out of that. And I think we'll continue to see these kind of weird results between now and the end of the season. We have to go and be pressing at the weekend. I think it's really important for what happened on Tuesday and for our momentum and season that we take 3 points at the weekend. However, going to Oxford, as an example, it doesn't look like that bad of a result going into this next set of games if we go there and get a point. I still want us to win the game, but it doesn't look that bad when you see the grand scheme of the pitches. We've got Stoke and then Bristol City at home. If we're back into that position of if we win as home games, we'll probably finish in the top 2. That's how it feels now with 5 games to go.
Yeah, I mean, we know Sheffield United and Burnley are playing each other as well. It's that little trump card we've got, isn't it, where you think, now, if we can just kind of keep pace, keep a couple points ahead of Sheffield United over these next couple of games and make that such a high-pressure game for one of them, we know somebody's going to drop points in that game. Possibly both of them are going to drop points. It's huge, and we just need to make sure we're kind of, there with them or just a little bit ahead at that point, so we can really make the advantage count. Couple other things then, Jason. Thank you everyone for your comments as well. Really appreciate that. Please do smash a like on the video as well if you're watching along or if you're watching this later. Patrick Bamford, Jason, the redemption arc is in full flow. The forgotten man, I guess, of Leeds United has been injured for the majority of this season. A man who splits opinion, very divisive player, lightning rod over the years. I thought it was absolutely fantastic on Tuesday. I really did. I thought he made a huge difference. And, Patrick is one of those players I was mentioning to you before where, yes, there's been times where I've been absolutely banging my head with him against the wall, the missed penalties, and we know all that stuff. And he's had a horrible time with injuries as well. But we know how talented he is. We know about that 19-20 season or whatever it was in the Premier League, 17 goals and all that, and how talented he was. The point I made to you before we started as well was, in January, I was thinking, did we need to sign a different profile of striker, something different? It's not really working with Joseph at the minute. And then we've got Patrick Bamford back and fit, who just looks phenomenal. I mean, the bit of play at the end where he kind of recovers the ball, beats a player, and then lays off a beautiful ball out. I mean, it was like prime Pat. Just how big of a role do you think he could potentially play in this running?
Well, he gives us something completely different, doesn't he, to Joel Perreault. And, Matteo Joseph, unfortunately, we've learned as this season's gone on that he's unfortunately miles away from being a starting striker in a team that's going for promotion. He just is. And that's no, discredit to him. He's young. He's got plenty of time on his hands. This is his first full season at first team level. So he's got time. But Pat has quickly shown, and he has shown consistently throughout this season, actually, when he's been available, he's been ahead of Matteo Joseph. He's a better player than Matteo Joseph is right now. The problem with Pat for years now has been his injury record. Pretty much since getting the England cap, he's had on and off injuries that have kept him out of the side. The season that we got relegated, we could argue that it was him that we missed. The season before, you could argue that we struggled as much as we did because he wasn't in and around as much as what we needed him. And as long as we don't have a replacement for Patrick Bamford within the squad, you have to look at him and take him into account for what we have got at our disposal. And he is still, if he was fully fit, still the best striker at the club. You could argue a fully fit Patrick Bamford, if he was fully fit, is the best striker in the division. You could argue that. I'm not saying the most clinical. He's always going to miss chances. That is part of his makeup. He's not a natural born finisher. But in terms of his all-round game, he's a fantastic number 9 at this level. There's a reason that Bielsa played everything around him. There's a reason that he played every single game, regardless of Eddie Nketiah or whoever else came in. He was the man, and he's a fantastic footballer, especially at this level. It's just you can't rely on him because of his fitness. since he's come back in the 2 appearances that we've seen him, he looks like he trusts his body again. We've said this to each other a couple of times over our time in doing this. You can tell when he doesn't trust his body, and then there's games where he looks like he does, and he looks like he's in one of them moments at the moment where he's come back strong, he's fit, he's ready, and he looks close back to his championship best. Maybe not his Premier League best, but certainly his championship best. And mate, he absolutely is a real asset to have come this stage of the season. He's quicker than Pirot. He's better at the press. He's better at the hold-up. He's better in the air. Like, he's not a better finisher, but apart from that, like, Bamford has everything that Pirot doesn't really. Is that kind of leading line number 9? So fingers crossed he can, he can keep fit between now and the end of the season, and he can offer us what we need. I'd love him to be the player that scores the winning goal that takes us up, confirms promotion. The amount of abuse and stick that Patrick Bamford has got over the years has actually been bordering on disgusting. Like, he has been so underrated and undervalued and underappreciated by the Leeds fans. It's crazy. I mean, under Bielsa, way before me and you did this kind of content, or we did it together anyway, I used to spend too many hours defending the guy on social media because I always rated what he did. I always rated him as a player, the pressing, the link-up play that he brought to the team. And not everybody, but a large section of the fan base called for anybody that was in the team. Tyler Roberts, I remember bloody people calling for Tyler. Do you remember after Tyler Roberts scored 2 against Hull away? Do you remember? He came off the bench and scored. People were saying, Tyler Roberts, he's playing in League 2. Is it League 1 Northampton? I don't know. Anyway, he's down the bloody divisions. Like, people did it with Eddie Nketiah, even though it made us worse as a team. They wanted Nketiah to start because he scored when he came off the bench. And this has happened time and time and time again over the years. Now, as his injuries have caught up on him more, it's fair enough that people are getting frustrated with his lack of availability. But to think that he's just happy not playing football is mental. It is madness that there's actually fans that think he'd be happy being injured and being on the sidelines. Like, he's in the back end of his career now. He will be desperate to play at every minute possible to play before time's up. So, yeah, for me, he gets my 100% support. I'm not sure right now whether it'd be right to start him, just simply because I don't think we'd get 90 out of him. I'm not even sure if we'd get an hour. And I think he'd be better coming on in affecting the games in the way that he is rather than the other way around right now. But he's not far off me. There's an argument. I wouldn't have any problem if he did start. If Farke thought he was fit, I'd have no problem with him starting the game of the weekend.
No, absolutely. And I think there's a big difference between, this is where you see the lines of kind of the fans in the stadium and the social media brigade, because, I mean, when Bamford came on the other night, his name's getting chanted. I always feel like he's had a lot of support kind of from, inside the stadium.
In the ground, he does.
He's had a lot of support in the ground, but, obviously he's had a lot of, there's been threats and all sorts of daft stuff, hasn't there, on social media. I mean, that shows you. I think there's a few content creators as well that have driven that narrative about him being kind of dead and buried and, really poor and all this kind of thing as well. And, mud sticks, doesn't it? So it's great to see him kind of having an impact. I really like it.
Where does it come from though, Browney? Like you mentioned to me before we started the show that he's in the same breath as Cooper, Ayling, Berardi, Alioski, Calvin Phillips. He's part of that, Hawkwat. Can't think of the word. Quartet, whatever word you want to put to it. He's part of that group, the Bielsa babes, that we should think of so fondly, and we do think of so fondly. Yet Bamford gets treated like a traitor. Like it's always confused me. I've never understood it. I've never understood the lack of support that he gets online. I think you're right. I think in the ground he's usually well supported, but I think online and the general consensus from the masses, not the minority, I think it's actually quite a big perception, is that Bamford's so vilified. I don't get it. I don't know if it's because he's a bit posh, he's a bit different, or Chelsea link, or what. I don't know what it is.
I think that plays into it. I think the posh boy thing, there's maybe again an unconscious bias, and the fact that he's had a couple of managers. I think Sean Dyche, who we didn't really see eye to eye with, and a couple of the working class kind of, it's like he doesn't fit into that kind of mold. The way he carries himself is a little bit different. I think there's been a couple of moments as well where I know fans got on top of one comment he made where, if the team needs me, I'll come back kind of thing. I think people interpreted it as like, oh, so you're going to do us a favour, are you, by playing football?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple of things like that, the penalty misses, the missed chance against Leicester, and it's so hard for him because, he's the striker, he's the one who has to put the ball in the net. Those other guys, the Beelzebubs, they when you're a midfielder, defender, you don't necessarily have those defining moments like a striker, and he's probably just unlucky that some of that stuff has gone against him and it's being used as a stick to beat him, and all the good stuff has been forgotten about.
But like it's just weird how certain players kind of fall into a pocket. Like I love Berra as an example, but Gaetano Berardi, I absolutely love him, but he wasn't the best footballer. And Gaetano Berardi arguably cost us promotion the first season at the end when he got sent off wildly. I mean, who knows? We could have come back into that. He lost his head. There were several times where he got sent off unnecessarily. Yet he has this kind of cult hero status within the fan base. It is this like God. Alioski. I love Gianni Alioski as well. But he was a woeful defensive left back. And he just kind of, everything got forgiven because of the madness of round Alioski. Yeah, and the personality. Like, why aren't the sitters and the penalty misses kind of looked upon the same with him? He's always confused me. Like if he were a Leeds boy, or if he was, Moldovan or whatever, and he had that kind of perception that Berardi had, I think it'd be different. Like I bet Antonucci is probably seen more favourably by Leeds fans than Patrick Bamford. I don't get it. He scored so many great goals in the Championship season. He was pivotal in that side that got promoted. He was absolutely pivotal. Behind Calvin Phillips and Ben White, I would say he was the third most important player in that team. Maybe with Pablo Hernandez. Pablo Hernandez was also very, very key. But he was right up there in the top 3 or 4. The Premier League, him and Calvin and Rafinha were literally the men. You know what I mean? Like he absolutely carried us. Yeah, he's just... I don't get it. He's just
right. It is, yeah. I this is why I hope this is a redemption moment for him, and I would love it. Imagine if he got the goal that sent us up. I mean, it'd just be perfect. Is he out of contract this summer? Or
he's got one more year? And I was just going to say, I want to make it clear that if we go up, I'd still want to see him move on. Like, I'm not trying to paint a picture where Patrick Bamford's our striker in the Premier League. My God, we need a number 9 that can come in and be reliable and play every week. Like if he was third choice or fourth choice in the Premier League and he's happy sitting on the bench for a year, I wouldn't be against it because, he's got a year contract. It's going to cost us a lot of money to get a third choice striker that probably could do the same job as Pat. I won't be against that, but I would like to see him go off, get a nice move somewhere, and we can enjoy him somewhere else after 200 appearances for our club, by the way. You know what I mean? And that's with all the injuries that he's had. So, yeah, like, I'd love him to be the man that scores the winner. I would love him to be the man that does it.
Well, he's the last. I mean, but I know Striker Millier, but he's the last.
He's the last of them. Yeah,
he's the last one, isn't he? Really. So yeah, it would be special. It would be really special. Diggler, thanks for your comment, mate. Bamford is a very good player, no doubt at all, and maybe one of the best in the division. But it worries me how he might miss sitters at crucial moments. And Mark, all good strikers miss sitters. The reason you notice is because they get in goal scoring positions when others are nowhere near involved. It's funny you just mentioned Rafinha there. By the way, we could have a potential Ballon d'Or winner in Rafinha. 2 assists last night and a goal in the Champions League. Just a very quick comment on him. I mean, it's just phenomenal to see his rise, isn't it? I mean, he's just... do you know what? I love it, though. I absolutely love watching him kind of set the world alight this year because he had kind of 2 lukewarmish years at Barcelona. Him and Xavi. I don't think Xavi really got the best out of him or a lot of the players, to be honest. And Hansi Flick's come in, and I mean, he's equalled Messi's record in terms of Champions League goals and assists. He's on for a record-breaking year, and he played for us. He played for Leeds United. I mean, I was watching a video the other day of his goals at Leeds, and I'm just like, is that a dream? Did that happen? I mean, it's
incredible,
unreal, isn't it, that he played for this club?
I mean, we all could. The players said it. Like the second that they saw him on the training pitch, they knew he was different. Like when you're surrounded by a good player, but when you've got a great player in and amongst your ranks, like you can see it a mile off. I've seen several interviews. Calvin and Patty Bamford, as it happened, both individually said exactly the same thing. Like they knew he was elite, and we spent 2 seasons as Leeds fans banging the drum. This lad is the real deal. Like, to watch him was like, the only player that I can say was comparable in my lifetime was Harry Kewell. I don't know, we don't like to mention him on here, but he's the only player that I think can put into that bracket. Harry Kewell was elite. He could have gone on to play for anybody at the time when he was at Leeds. And Rafinha was exactly the same. And yeah, I mean, I love watching him. I love singing and singing his praises now. Would love him to win the Ballon d'Or.
Gav says he's got to be favourite. Absolutely.
He's the only player that you can really think that everybody could think of. Yeah, he deserves a fair shout for that. This last 12 months, I mean, his numbers are unreal. He's in the 40s for goal contributions. He's their captain. Is Brazil's arguably their main man as well, along with Vinicius and a couple of others. He's sensational, mate. And yeah, we were so lucky to have him. Fair play, Victor Orta, for picking that one off, and Bielsa for doing what he did with him. The fact, I mean, he's arguably could be the best player that we ever seen in a Leeds shirt, mate. He arguably could be, because we'll be lucky to ever see a player come through the doors that's like him ever again. So yeah, sensational player.
Absolutely, we had him for 2 years as well. Another winger who we brought in to the club in the summer, who obviously not Rafinha levels, but we didn't know what we would potentially get for him. We had high hopes for him, and he had a cracking start at the club, but it's kind of tailed off, and he had a very interesting moment the other night. It is, of course, largely Ramazani. Lots of discussion around this guy. He seems to be playing kind of less and less, and tensions were rising. A lot of fans starting to question it, myself included. For a long time, I kind of held off and backed obviously what Farke were doing, and then this run, it does send you down crazy paths, and I started to kind of question what's been going on with largely. Has Farke blown this a little bit? And I was kind of looking at the Jadon Anthony thing for last season and wondering, were we going down the same path? But a fascinating moment at the end of the game, Jason, where he takes largely over to the fans. Ramazani's not even made it onto the pitch, and gets him to do the woo thing with him. And I think it probably shut a lot of people up when they saw that moment. It was kind of, it was kind of interesting watching, because body language and everything, Ramazani's a bit reticent to go over, but he's smiling, and it looks as if Farke's got him completely on side. And it's almost like, look, you will have your moment in the sun, but there's a way and a means of how we get this done. I mean, what did you make of that moment and kind of the bigger picture around Ramazani?
Well, I mean, I think we've been on different sides of the fence with this, haven't we? I think you've been,
especially the last couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, which is fair. Yeah. Like, and everybody's fair to have their opinions on stuff. What I can't deal with is when people claim things as fact when the evidence in front of you is displaying something else. And the way that I see it very black and white, in that when he's been given opportunities, he's not performed. And it's clear, because Daniel Farke wants what's best for Leeds United, it's clear that he's not doing enough behind the scenes to get the opportunities, to the point where that when he has had to look at his bench, he's now been going to Isaac Schmidt over Ramazani. And Isaac Schmidt deserves it, because when he comes on, he's making a difference. He's making an impact, and he's clearly made that impact in training. So I'm going to trust my manager that most of the time gets things right. He doesn't always get it right. He doesn't always deserve defending, but most of the time he does. And I think this situation with Ramazani, I actually think he's dealt with it perfectly. I think the man management around it has been spot on. Like, what is he meant to do when people are questioning it? I said this last week. Do you want him to lie and just say that Ramazani's, carrying a knock or whatever? Or do you want some truth? Because that's what we all plead for when we see these interviews, instead of these scripted BS interviews that we usually get from managers and coaches. He came out and said, he's not doing what I need him to do, so he's not playing. Like, he's just saying it as it is. And that doesn't mean that there's then necessarily a problem. Obviously, Ramazani is not going to be happy not playing, but there's clearly not this like real difference of meetings between the two in Ramazani and Farke. There's clearly a player that wants to play but not doing enough, and a manager that's not picking him. He will get his opportunity. He got his opportunity before and he took it. Since he's come back from his injury, he hasn't. It's as simple as that. And Solomon and Dan James, they both work their asses off, as well as the technical, talented side that they've got. They both work really hard for the team. And I don't think that ultimately that is something that you can trust Ramazani to do down that left side as much as Solomon. and same on the other side. And I think Dan James being out at the weekend, I think we might see him. I think we might even see him start. I wouldn't be that shocked to see him start on that right-hand side. And then he's going to have to work for that opportunity to take that chance. That'd be harsh on Nonto, but it depends on how he wants to manage his squad. But there's clearly not this big issue between the two that some fans want to believe that there is. And like some fans just, I think, purely want to make out like this is on Daniel Farke rather than blaming the player. That sometimes that's just not the case. Sometimes it is just as it seems, and a player doesn't deserve to be playing.
Yeah, leads us perfectly on to the Dan James situation, actually, because Dan James the other night, I mean, he was absolutely on fire. Everything good Leeds did was through Dan James. Moment after moment, scored a brilliant goal, obviously, against Luton as well at the weekend. I think we had a comment earlier from yourself, Gavin. Sorry for not flashing it up, mate, but you said about player of the season. I'd have to agree with that. I thought it was absolutely lightning against Middlesbrough.
I think it's championship player of the year.
Yeah, me too. He's going to be out for the weekend, though. How concerned are you about that? And you've mentioned it could possibly be Ramazani that actually comes in. Is that the solution you'd like? Would that be your pick at the moment?
I can't lie. I'd still think that Nonto would deserve that over Ramazani. I want to see Ramazani at his absolute best in terms of what we saw before that injury. I would love to. I'd love the fact that he can go both ways more than the other ones can. He's got the best left foot out of the four. Think of some of his finishes. 2 of his goals have been left foot pearlers, really. I would massively push still for Nonto. I, however, could see him throwing a little bit of a curveball with this one. He's got an opportunity to do it, hasn't he? With the fact that Dan James is going to be forced out of the team. Dan James will play every week. So I could actually see him going Ramazani or maybe even Isaac Schmidt. Like, they both are going to be obviously chomping at the bit for a start. And Schmidt, you could argue, really deserves it. Nonto came in at Luton and didn't play very well. Like, people can say what they want. I had somebody arguing with me the other day that, it wasn't Nonto's fault. It was because Luton crowded him out of the game. And I just went back and said, well, if it were Brendan Aronson in there, you'd have been blaming Brendan Aronson. You wouldn't have been saying that Luton did well. So you can't have both. So, yeah, I still think that Nonto will get the nod. And I think if I had to be pushed into one of the choices, it'd be Nonto. But like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if it were one of the other boys either. He's got good options, hasn't he?
Yeah,
one thing with Schmidt, though, just before you move on, hold that thought. I am now fully convinced that he sees Isaac Schmidt as a winger.
Yeah.
I don't think he sees him as a fullback.
Feels like it, doesn't it?
It's felt like that all season, if we're honest. Like, he's played once at fullback and I think made one substitute appearance at fullback. The rest of the time when he's come on in midfield, either for a centre midfielder or out wide. I think he sees him as a 5th choice winger rather than a fullback.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels that way. Just one thing on Ramazani as well, because I think, people talk about, can Farke handle, big personalities and whatnot. But, we've got to remember Somerville last year, and Somerville is notoriously a little bit difficult to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of reports, when he, last summer, I remember I think it was Adam Pope, and I remember chatting to Nancy Froston about it. That all heard whispers about, he was a poor trainer and could have a bit of an attitude at times. But look at the numbers Farke got out of him last year. So I don't think Farke's incapable of managing, a kind of maverick type player. I don't think Farke has any difficulty in that at all. I think it's something very specific with Ramazani that is not liked, and he wants to see more of. He's said as much. So yeah, I mean, the other thing, of course, is it wouldn't surprise me if he came in and had a real impact, gets a couple of goals or whatever, plays really well, that Farke keeps him in. Farke's done that before. If he sees that evidence in front of him, he will go for it.
Absolutely, Dan James, has absolutely earned that right wing spot. The questions would have been at the beginning of the season, him or Nonto, and Dan James has absolutely made that his own, and he's stayed injury free this season. He's the kind of player that gets injured a lot because of the way that he plays, the speed that he runs at, the fouls that he draws from opponents. I mean, he gets kicked all over the place, and thankfully he's been able to stay very fit this year. So, he's stapled that place to the team sheet, hasn't he? So, now there's an opportunity for one of them to take that. And I hope they take it. I hope Dan James is forced to stay on the bench until the end of the season because they're playing so well until he comes back. That's what is best for Leeds United. So I don't care who plays. I am not, Dan James FC or Ethan Ampadu FC. I'm Leeds United FC. So I don't care who plays there as long as they're playing well. That's what a lot of fans, when they argue with chess, they're arguing with themselves really about an opinion that they used to have, and they marry themselves to it. I don't care. I don't care.
Exactly.
It's true, isn't it? It's just a truth. I just want what's best for the team. And, right now, all season, the team has been better with Dan James and Solomon in there. Solomon's one of them again. We talk about lightning rods. He's one for this team. For whatever reason, a certain section of the fan base just love to criticise him. And that can be when he's delivering balls into the box every week, and just because he don't get an assist. It's crazy. I thought Brendan Aronson, from what I've seen of he's another one. I thought Brendan Aronson, from what I've seen of the first half, I thought he was great against Middlesbrough. And if Nonso would have been in there, would have been banging trouble. Because they'd have cut through some of their best players here at Hackney. Illian Jr., they come through them kind of areas of the pitch. They're caused of all sorts of problems. So, again, Farke's got it spot on. Ilya Gruev, I think, I bouncing around a little bit now.
Did some busy work with Gruev. Yeah. He were tidy. He were really tidy. Sorry, mate. Go on.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I think with the lack of balance in terms of the strong feet in the centre-back department when Ampadu and Rodon's there, Gruev becomes even more important because he drops into that third centre-back role and he can distribute the balls around that angle. It's clever. It's simple, but clever. So...
yeah, I thought it was very tidy. His midfield partner, Tanaka, had an interesting evening as well. I think he's been a little bit of a shadow of himself last few games. I didn't think he would. What did I think of Tanaka on Wednesday? I thought he was sloppy and still not up to his levels. But he was really trying. That's what you want as a base from a player, but you don't always get it. But I thought he kind of. I'm trying to think, did he improve as the game went on? There were certainly a few moments where whoa, what are you doing? You just wouldn't have seen it, giving possession away and misplacing passes that he never would have done. But it clearly means so much to him. I mean, he was apparently in tears in the dressing room. And I mean, I love him. Do you know what I mean? I absolutely love him as a player and want to see him back at those sky-high levels again. And obviously he cares, doesn't he, Jason?
Absolutely.
To be in tears in the dressing room. It's, that's what he's like. You get that impression from him. He wants it so much, and perhaps that's what's kind of dropping off a little bit lately.
Too many people are quick to throw shade at footballers for not caring.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you've seen from this team is that they certainly do, and there's certain individuals that it's hard to hold their emotions. I thought Lockie made a really, really good point on the final word on Joe's stream yesterday. He said, for the last 2 or 3 years, Autanaka's basically just played with Bundesliga 2 midfielders and, kind of gone under the radar, no stress or expectation. And he's been thrust into this championship position in a league that is arguably as big as any top league in the world in terms of the competitiveness. Leeds United is not like playing for any other league second division team in the world, really. The expectation and pressure that's attached to that is massive. He's hit the heights and he's been running with it. People are talking about him. Premier League moves. All this is kind of going on in Autanaka's world. He's now, main starter for Japan most weeks when he goes away for them. And he's kind of got all that weight and expectation now on his shoulders all of a sudden. So he's just a human who's trying to, carry on doing his profession to the best of his ability. And when the pressure's telling, and then others around him are showing cracks and stresses, it's very new for him. You know what I mean? So, and I made this point a couple of weeks ago. There's a reason that no teams have taken an opportunity on him and a risk on him. Maybe they've seen in the past that when he does have big pressure, he doesn't deal with it very well. So this is him developing and maturing as a man and as a player. So, but you're absolutely right. He has had some difficulties. But I think from what I saw, like I said, I didn't see all of the game, but he was better than he has been over the past couple of weeks. And the more he can be, his absolute best, the better for Leeds United, because he is absolutely vile. At his peak, he's the best centre midfielder in the division. So, yeah, he's vital for us, mate. Absolutely vital.
Yeah. He seems to get it, doesn't he, with the club as well. There's just some players that just kind of tune into that completely. In terms of what you'd be doing then for the team against Preston, how do you think it'll line up? Do you think Gruev? I mean, I'm trying to think, because Gruev doesn't see much action, does he, at home? But with Rothwell being out, it could be his chance again there.
I think it'll be exactly the same team with Nonto replacing Dan James. I don't think there'll be any changes to the rest of the side. I think Gruev will play alongside Tanaka with Ampadu being in the back line. I think it'd have been Ampadu instead of Gruev and Struijk in there if Struijk could have been fit. But I don't see many changes. I think he'll be very happy with the way that the side played. I think he'll be happy with the contributions from Solomon, who some will say would be one of the question marks. Pirot might be the other question mark for Bamford. But I just don't see him thrusting Bamford into starting a game after only coming back for the previous two after being out for so long. I just don't see it happening. And again, I think over the first 60 minutes of a game, you would like Pirot to be on the end of one of them chances that he's likely to get, even though he's not scored for 5 or 6 now or whatever it is. I think you'd still rather him be on the end of it with Pat to come on and make that difference if needed for the last 20, 30 minutes. So, yeah, I think it'll be the same team, mate, and I've been more than happy with that, if I'm honest.
What do you think of Joe Pirot at the minute? He just seems to be not off it. I mean, he seems to be having a bit more of a harder time. He's only scored, I think, 1 in 7 or something. I mean, these things happen. I mean, you look at his G&A contribution to the season, he's still top 2, isn't he? But, I mean, it's just one of those spells. It's probably, again, it's great timing that we've got another option in Pat. I agree. I think, let Pat come on for the last 15, 20 minutes of games, and hopefully it'll turn for Peru again.
I mean, his link-up play has dwindled a little bit, but I'd still say it's been okay. I'm going to keep on mentioning this until Pirot probably leaves, or more prominently, Daniel Farke probably leaves. But this system and this setup is not designed for Joel Pirot or the 10 to be the scorer of goals. Hence, who set up the goal at the weekend and who scored the goal? Yeah, I don't know how many times I have to say, but people don't seem to see it. Again, it comes from the wings. Yeah. That is, who put the ball through to Solomon? Junior Firpo. Solomon, James, goal. Apart from the two ruled offside, the best chance that we had apart from that in the game, Dan James crossing it across the box, should have picked out one of them. They both missed it in the middle of the box. I think it were Pirot and then Solomon. I mean, that is the way that we play football and the way that we score goals. So I have not got that much of a problem with Joe Pirot not getting the G&A. I really don't. I want him to be top scorer, but it's just, it's not really that big of a problem, as long as we're scoring, which most weeks we do. I sent to you earlier, I've put it in the private chat as well, but earlier on I sent you the amount of goals that we've scored in comparison to Burnley and Sheffield United. We're 30 in front of both.
That's just what I was going to bring up, because we've got this incredible statistic.
This is insane. This is insane, Browney. To be 47 plus your G&A, your best expected goals. That's your expected. We should have scored another 47 goals than we have done. That's insane. We've already scored 80. The XG, even if you don't care about XG, it's saying that we should have scored 130 goals. So even if you half that, it'd be 105. It's insane. Absolutely insane. So, this team creates an abundance of chances, and Pirot, can be guilty of missing a few of them as well, but he is the most clinical finisher in the team. I've not got a problem with wheeling him out there every single week, really, if I'm honest with you, especially while we're winning games. I like him as an overall player. We've not been playing well over the last few weeks, so it stands to reason that he will not be playing as well, and he will have then had less chances to score. The only game that I really hold him accountable for in this run is Portsmouth. I think if he was at his best, even slightly at his best, he wins us that game. So, yeah.
That was probably about half that bloody XG on there, them two chances. Jesus Christ.
I know.
God almighty, painful. I'd forgotten about that, Jason. Why have you brought that up?
Sorry.
Good stuff. Well, it's all looking a little bit brighter in the world of Leeds United. Certainly. Myself and Jason, we will be back at some point over the weekend to give our thoughts on the Preston game, where hopefully the good feeling continues.
I'm actually at the game Saturday. So I'm going.
I'm missing it.
You're missing it completely. Oh well, that's great, because that means neither of us are going to get a good view of it. Because when I go, usually I sit with my cousin who sits in the south stand, and he's got the worst ticket ever. It's horizontal with the crossbar. So if you imagine, like, I'm like here. Can you see my eyes like there, right? So I hate it, actually. I'd prefer to watch it at home, but I like going, obviously, because I like going to it live. I like going and spending time with him and whatnot. So when the ticket comes up, I usually say no and I just watch it at home. But I've decided to take this one. You know, we're close towards the end of the season. I've been at one game this season, and that was Burnley at home when we lost 1-0. So I'm hoping I'm not the bad omen for this season.
Yeah, banned from Ellen Road if not, Jason. I tell you.
Yeah.
Sunday then, maybe we'll reconvene Sunday, and we'll give our post-match thoughts. Then hopefully it's going to still be looking all good in the world of Leeds United. Thank you very much for everyone who's watched along this evening live and got your comments in. If you're watching this again later, please do smash a like on the video. Get your comments in as well on everything we've discussed. I've been Stephen Brown. With me has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Have fun at the game, and we will catch up with you again on Sunday. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye.